Next week I'm moving to my new home that I managed to purchase with no outside support. I wasn't eligible for any government schemes or low equity loans, nor did I rely on my family to provide funds or guarantees for this loan using their incomes. In this video I'll be sharing how I managed to do this and save a deposit of over $100,000 in just 4 years. This isn't a video to brag or anything, as many others have managed to do what I've done, but a lot quicker. And when looking around on YouTube, I didn't find anybody else sharing their experience in the kind of depth I will be sharing in this video. In the newspapers, we often hear stories about young people buying homes, but it was simply their parents stepping in to fund the loan or act as a guarantor, which wasn't the case for me. I'll be walking through how much I was saving year by year, the breakdown of where my money was parked, and what my mindset was throughout this process, and giving as many details as I can remember. If you like this video or want to see more content just like this in the personal finance and investing space, please make sure to subscribe to my channel down below. Let's get into it. Let's go all the way back to 2018 when I got my first job working as a business development analyst for a family office based in Singapore. I was 23 at the time and getting paid just over $40,000 a year. My net worth then was roughly negative $8,000, made up of both student loans and borrowings from family. I do acknowledge I was incredibly privileged to have started with such a low level of debt, and many of you starting your journey may have much more than that to start. Do keep watching, however, as I'll be sharing a few strategies that are proven effective in eliminating debt quickly. So in 2018, I set the goal of eliminating all debt and to have a positive net worth by the end of the year. To eliminate debt, there are two universally approved approaches to tackle this: the avalanche approach and the snowball approach. The first step is to create a table with all of your debt listed by interest rate and amount outstanding. If we sort the debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate and pay the debts off in this order, we are using the avalanche approach. This works best to minimize our interest expense, as we first eliminate high interest rate debt, such as credit card and overdue debts. If we instead rank from the lowest amount to the highest and pay in this order, we are using the snowball approach. For some people, seeing progress is the best motivator to eliminate debt, so this works best for them. In my case, I eliminated the family debt first, but in all other cases I'd use the avalanche approach. But that's just me. I managed to eliminate my debt by July that year, and by the end of the year, I ended up with a net worth of roughly $10,000, of which $4,000 was a year-end bonus. In 2019, this was a big year as I quit my job in Singapore and moved back home to New Zealand with my partner. My goal this year was to save a nest egg in the case I couldn't find a job for a while upon moving back, and smoothly settle back in after 6 years overseas. While in Singapore, I was continuing to save roughly $1,000 a month, or around 27% of my take-home salary, and was fortunate to receive a performance bonus of around $7,000 earlier in the year. When I came home to New Zealand, I started saving slightly more at around 40% of my net salary, and began investing my money into large cap US stocks through Hatch, and New Zealand index funds through Sharesies. I also restarted contributing to KiwiSaver for the employer and government contributions, and applying for first home grants. I ended the year with around $30,000 saved up. This was made up of $13,000 in cash, $15,000 in stocks, and around $2,500 in KiwiSaver. At this point, I was well on my way towards a deposit on a home, but 2020 proved to be disruptive to my plans, for obvious reasons. In 2020, there was a lot of uncertainty. The pandemic hit in March and effectively meant I was working for free in the first quarter, as my savings were about equal to my stock market losses over this period. Fortunately, I doubled down on my investments in April and my net worth increased around $8,000 in that month alone. By mid-year, my savings had reached $52,000, largely on the back of stock market gains. I had $39,000 in stocks, $5,000 in KiwiSaver, and the remainder in cash. By this point, I was feeling pretty good and started looking at properties in West Auckland. At the time I was thinking I was close to having a 10% deposit, but in the second half of 2020, house prices in New Zealand began to soar as interest rates fell to levels as low as 2%. I ended the year with $76,000 saved. However, the average price of homes in my desired suburb of Hobsonville had by this point surpassed $800,000. In addition, given my income level at the time, the bank would only lend me $600,000 with the condition it was a new build and had to have at least 2 bedrooms to accommodate a flatmate. Otherwise, they wouldn't lend to me. Even outside of Hobsonville, these were very hard to find, with most being sold with over a year from completion. I then turned to the likes of KiwiBuild and Access Series Home Ballots for houses that were in my range. However, I frequently received emails like this, saying I had been unsuccessful in light of there being over 1,000 others also trying to purchase. I became a bit jaded, and that continued through to 2021, when things got even more crazy in the housing market. In 2021, I started a new role at my company and was saving roughly 50% of my income. I also moved into my own apartment and my rent increased from $350 a week to $425 with all utilities included. It was also a 10-minute walk from my work, so I saved money on transport and maintaining a car. On the stock market side of things, I'd invested heavily into the NZX linked funds, specifically the FNZ ETF, as I believe the New Zealand economy was strongly placed due to New Zealand's relatively short experience with COVID. This proved, of course, to be a poor decision, as the New Zealand stock market significantly underperformed those in the US. If I had my investment in the Nasdaq, I'd have made over $10,000 during the year, instead of making a slight loss on the NZX. On the housing side of things, houses that were selling for $760,000 in 2020 were now selling for $950,000, and were selling quicker than it takes a first home buyer to get a banker on the phone. The two predominant sales methods in 2021 were through offers and auctions, two notoriously hard processes for first home buyers to succeed in. There were many cash buyers who didn't need to go through the bank or do due diligence on the properties, and as such I was never able to get organised in time. The unsuccessful applications for ballots continued, and I took reassurance in the fact I'd saved a decent amount of money. I ended the year having saved around $113,000. I had $68,000 in the stock market split between Sharesies and Kernel, $26,000 in cash, $17,000 in kiwisaver, and $2,500 in both Bitcoin and Ethereum through Binance. So this ended out the end of last year, having saved up for 4 years in total. Right now, as of June 2022, I've put down a down payment of $115,000 on a newly built property in West Auckland. This required me to sell my entire stock and crypto portfolio in April of this year, encashing my kiwisaver and committing a large amount of cash to the deposit. I hope through this video you got a feel for the commitment it required on my part to save for the house deposit. It required a lot of restraint to ensure I was able to save anywhere between 27% and 50% of my salary, but that's required if you're serious about wanting to save a large amount of money. It goes without saying that I had a lot of privilege in saving these funds, as I started from a reasonably low level of debt, had no kids, had no dependents, and I didn't have any large medical bills or compulsory costs. However, it is worth noting that there are several ways you can do what I did even quicker. If you live at home, you could easily save well over $10,000 a year. If you have a partner to split bills with, you can make large savings too. Or if you started working earlier than at 23 like I did, you'd have many more years to save and invest. So it isn't worth using my experience as a template. We are all in different situations, which will affect our ability to one day afford a home. What is important is that you have a goal, you find ways to enforce the habits that will get you there, and sure enough, you'll be able to build a nest egg that will one day allow you to purchase your own home. If you have recently purchased a home or are well on your road to, please feel free to share your comments down below, as there may be others that could be inspired by your experiences. Do also leave a comment if you have any questions about my story. I'm more than happy to share. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel down below to see more content just like this in the personal finance and investing space. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to catching you on the next one. Cheers.